You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. As we sit here 6 games to go in the season, the White Sox have to go 5-1 to avoid 100 losses. They're not going to do that. I don't think they can take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, who swept them recently, and the Yankees are in the middle of a playoff chase, my friend, and it is really interesting in the American League with the divisional games, and some of these divisions are up for grabs. The wild card on both sides up for grabs. We're going to get into it on this show and talk about a lot of stuff White Sox as well, all brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park, 33rd and Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark, the official home of Sox in the Basement. And they've got indoor, outdoor seating, even though, as we record today, is a little rainy and fall finally. I mean, I've been waiting for fall. Have you not been waiting? I've been waiting for fall.
Yeah, the extended summer is great in some ways, but it's time. It's time for fall.
I'm so done with the summer. I am so done with the summer. Like, this whole past week, I'm walking around trying to wear blue jeans and getting way too warm. You know, I mean, I'm a 48-year-old white guy. 48-year-old white guys are supposed to wear cargo shorts until December, and I just want to put on my blue jeans. Like, I want to put on one of my 3/4 zips. I need the fall. I'm waiting for the fall. I'm done with 80-some degrees out there. I know it's great baseball weather, right? But it's fall time. Bring on a little bit of a chill.
Admit you slather yourself in pumpkin spice everything, though, too.
I do. I like the pumpkin.
That's why you need the 3/4 zip. You don't want to look too orange underneath.
I'm divorced and I still have a pumpkin candle in my place. That's okay.
That's
an admission that I have to make to myself. All right, so indoor, outdoor seating, beautiful, especially if we get some fall weather. The Sox are done with their home games, but you can still go over there and watch a ball game over at the Cork. I suggest you do it. And when the season resumes again, they are your place for your pregame and your postgame and your in-game. The spot right there at 33rd and Princeton, Cork and Carry at the Park. All right, so speaking of the White Sox, before we get into some of these intriguing races, because I really want to take a look at them here, 6 games left to go as we're sitting here talking. The majority, if not all, of Major League Baseball will have 5 left to go by the time this episode comes out. And it is close between a lot of these teams fighting for the division, fighting for the wild card. But some interesting stuff came out right around the time that the last episode came out. I didn't get a chance to address it, and I kind of wanted to wait for you. Scott Merkin just starts rattling off tweets a couple days ago because he obviously sat down, had a nice conversation with Brooks Boyer over at the White Sox. All right? And Brooks waxed poetic, essentially, about how everything's going so well with all the broadcast, right? Like, everybody's just doing such a bang-up job. And he's asked specifically about John Schriffen, the worst play-by-play guy in Major League Baseball. I don't even think it's up for debate. And his response, or what he said about him, quote, "John is enthusiastic. He sometimes, maybe, this could be a detriment." That's how it's written. I'm just reading how it was written in the tweet. I'm sure he cleaned it up in his story. He's in it with the guys. He has created good relationships with the players, so you're able. That's part of what we have to do as an organization, is tell stories about these guys. There's like this spin that's beginning where he's doing better. It's not as bad as it was the first year. I mean, the first year he was messing up historical figures' names when speaking about the White Sox. This year I watched him talk over Steve Stone, who played with Dick Allen, to wax poetic about Dick Allen until Steve Stone had to point out, well, I played with him. Maybe I could talk a little bit about him, right? Like, I don't see very much difference. I still hear the weird screams. I still hear the I want to fight the other team sometimes, and don't bring this to the South Side. I still hear the real fans are here stuff and some of the crap that comes out during the broadcast, and I still long for any time that Connor McKnight is filling in for him. And so I don't know what Brooks Boyer is watching, but I have a suspicion that is what a guy like Brooks Boyer does. He is aware that his owner, and I truly believe this. We've talked about this before on the show, Ed. I truly believe that working underneath Jerry Reinsdorf sometimes prevents people that are hired to do a job to do the job 100% because he has weird policies. And one of his policies is he doesn't like to pay guys under contract to sit at home. And it's something that has come up for years and decades with this team. And we talked about it earlier on in the season. John Schriffen's under a contract through next year. There was supposedly some strife mid-season in that broadcast booth. But they're not going to pay him to sit at home for a year and a half, just like they didn't want to pay Pedro Grifol to sit at home. And if he held out that long with a manager in terms of waiting to fire him because he doesn't like having to pay a second manager, you really think he's going to waste money on a broadcaster when he doesn't really care that much about his fans to begin with? This owner who David Sampson claims said that it's better to end up in second place. You think he loves the fans enough that he cares whether or not it bothers you that this guy is broadcasting the games play-by-play wise? You think he wants to pay that guy to sit at home to help your ears? No, he doesn't want to do that. So Brooks Boyer's job is to go on or talk to a guy like Scott Merkin and say, we think it's going really well. Here's a positive spin. That's his job. I don't fault Brooks Boyer for doing it, but he's doing his job right there, trying to sit down with a guy who works for MLB.com. I love Merck. He's been on the show a million times. If he came on the show again, I wouldn't even ask him about Schriffen because he has to come in contact with him on a daily basis. So I wouldn't even want to put him in that position. But he makes sure that he talks with Scott Merkin, the beat reporter for MLB, and talks about how much he loves his broadcast team as the season is coming to an end because he wants you to all just know he's going to be back next year. But I'm telling you, he's back next year, Ed, because the old man doesn't want to pay for a broadcaster to sit at home for a year.
I mean, this is Brooks Boyer basically saying that his puppy dog, it's just exuberance, and he's really well behaved, even though he just ate your socks and took a dump in the middle of the floor and has absolutely no idea how to conduct himself in and around the house. I mean, Schriffen, yes, he's an enthusiastic guy. Yes, he apparently, and I believe this. I do believe that he has gotten to know the players very well.
Of course he is. If you're a broadcaster for the team and you don't know the players at the end of year 2, I'm confused. That's such a weird comment. That's like, you know what? Well, he's got to know some of the guys after being here for 24 months. Oh, that's incredible. Look at that. Look how friendly and personable he is.
Yeah, well, maybe even has a good rapport with them. And then that's fine that you can have all that. But the problem is that he has yet to show that he has a good rapport with Steve Stone, Gordon Beckham, and the other color guys that sit in there, okay? And this was pointed out in the Sun-Times column calling for his dismissal as well, that it's just he's hard to listen to because he has so many cliches that he falls back on. He's hard to listen to because it's difficult for him to not try and pander to people that he thinks he needs to pander to. And like you pointed out, him talking over a guy like Steve Stone about something, a good play-by-play guy knows when to shut up. And John Schriffen hasn't shown that yet. Now, he might get there in time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that White Sox fans have to be the ones that grow with him into this role. And if he was picked because he was that enthusiastic little puppy, and I know that's kind of a denigrating thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. If he was picked because of his enthusiasm, if he was picked because he was going to be trainable, and if he was picked because he was going to be a guy that the Reinsdorf group would sit there and say, we can get behind this guy because he's not going to do anything controversial, that's problematic too, because he's probably also inexpensive in some ways as well.
Well, here's why he was actually picked. This is my theory. This is why he was actually picked. I think that if you take a step back at the last couple of years and the PR machine that comes out of the White Sox, my belief is that somewhere there was a meeting and there was a big whiteboard and they started writing down what they wanted to do opposite of Jason Benetti. Like they didn't want Benetti around. What do we want in our next broadcaster? What do we want in terms of connecting with the fans? We have this terrible team. And that's where Better at the Ballpark came from. And that's where John Schriffen comes from. A guy that comes in who's happy to be there, who was not the best available play-by-play baseball broadcaster that you could go get. He was not the best. He probably wasn't even on the list of any other team in Major League Baseball. So he's happy to be there. He's able to be given directions of your job is to continue to tell people you should be out here. You support your team through thick and thin. You've got to be enthusiastic. We want you to toe the company line, and we want you to essentially be the propaganda machine for a team that's going to go out and lose a historic amount of games and not be good for several years because our fan base is furiously angry with us. So angry that we were canceling Sox Fest for years. We were the last team to really finally admit, like, it's probably safe to start getting people together again because we didn't want to have Sox Fest. And then when we have them in very controlled, very small environments. And so the plan is, how do we combat an angry fan base that has now watched this ownership for the last 4 decades fail? Because how do we do that? And so the idea is you bring in a guy like Schriffen, who's kind of a cheerleader, who can be molded because he's not a experienced Major League Baseball play-by-play guy. And then what you do is you connect with your fan base by reaching out to, and I'm just going to flat out say it, you don't reach out to somebody like me and Ed. Ed and I are out there critical of the team, calling it what it is, pointing out the ridiculousness of it. We've been doing it for years. We were doing it back when they tried to tell you that they gave the best offer to Manny Machado, and it wasn't the best guaranteed offer to Manny Machado. All right. The spin machine's always out there, and there are some of us out there that will always combat the spin machine and say, nope, that's not true. But there are other entities out there, independent entities, and I don't fault them, that are friendlier, that connect with the fans, that are part of the community at the ballpark that never left. And so you start the partnership up with those people. You start to make sure that John Schriffen, who does not appear very much, if at all, on Chicago radio, still has a place where he can get out there in a friendly area and they can push what they want to push towards their fan base. And you know what? It works in some ways. It's a smart move. It really is. It really is a smart move. What do? We try to connect at a grassroots level with our fans with already established channels that service fans because they're also fans. And they went out and they did that. And they've kind of created a nice little grassroots movement of, hey, still come out to the park, even though the team's not good. It's a good time. Have a bunch of beers, party with your friends, and you don't pay any attention to anybody that says there's problems with this team and there's problems with this owner. John Schriffen is just part of that cog. I'm telling you, it's a big, giant marketing plan to connect with your fan base at a grassroots level. And you need to have a guy like Schriffen who can be given direction as to how to do it and what to say and when to say it. Now, that does not, I don't think, work well with guys who are used to the normal way of broadcasting. And I think it rubs Steve Stone the wrong way because it feels like every time the two of them are in the booth, it's uncomfortable.
Well, and here's the thing. John Schriffen might be a really nice guy. He might be a lot of fun to be around. I don't know. We'll probably never find out.
We'll never find out.
We're never.
He isn't coming on this show, right? There's not going to be a sit down with Schriffen on this show. One, because I would have a very hard time. Like, I would try to be gracious. I think anytime you have a guy like that on, I'll admit it. You give me somebody from the White Sox, Len Casper comes on, I'm going to be like, man, you're the greatest broadcaster ever. Why? Because he's doing my show. Right? I'm going to be so cordial, so happy, so nice. I don't blame anybody for being nice to him.
Len Casper's really, really good at his job.
He is really good at his job.
Yeah. So,
I mean, if I was given the option of would you like to talk with John Schriffen or Len Casper, I'd be like, do I have to pay extra money for Len? And where do I sign my check and who do I give it to? Because I would want him. I would want him on my show.
Here's the thing. You look at part of my point is that it doesn't really matter what kind of a guy John Schriffen is. One of the things that White Sox fans have become accustomed to is a certain level of professionalism and chemistry in the play-by-play booth. Okay. Hawk, for all of his weirdness, at the very least was an entertaining listen for the most part. Right. And when he wasn't pouting over umpires missed, second strikes in the middle of the game, there was genuinely, listening to him and Wimpy was funny. Listening to him and DJ was difficult, but he tried. listening to him and Stone was fun. When Jason Benetti comes on, Jason Benetti was a pro. This was a guy that was very, very good. I mean, he really is one of the best broadcasters. And just looking at their Wikipedia pages, Jason Benetti's page is enormous, going over his history, his career, things that he's gone through. John Schriffen is barely half a page, and it talks about him doing some play-by-play in college, being a sports anchor and an intern and a reporter for various places. And then all of a sudden, after calling some KBO League games on ESPN, which Benetti also did, but Benetti was a full-time play-by-play guy for other sports, John Schriffen all of a sudden is the White Sox play-by-play guy.
Yeah, it's weird because guess what? You don't get the train on the job on how to be an MLB play-by-play guy with an MLB team unless the MLB team has a motivation to bring a guy in who's so raw and moldable that they can mold him in the way that they want to mold him. I mean, it's... To me, it's obvious. I feel like it's obvious to a lot of other people that are watching it if they're paying attention. So that's why when I see Brooks Boyer's comments, I go, okay, that makes sense. They're going to say that everything's going wonderful. He's improving. Don't worry about it because the old man's not going to pay him to sit at home and he's got one more year left on his deal. If they really, truly believe he's good, let's see if he's still around in 2027.
I was about to say, if he was really that good, Brooks Boyer's announcing his extension.
Yeah, they'd be extending him, right? Why haven't they extended him? It feels like extension time, right? If he's doing such a good job. I mean, it feels like that to me.
It feels that way. And really, honestly, John Schriffen has been put in an impossible situation because he followed, one, a very popular guy in Jason Benetti, but two, like you said, don't make a guy learn on the job at the major league level. This guy should have been doing some minor league stuff. This guy should have been doing something else for a little while before he earns it. Len Casper didn't become the voice of the Cubs until after he became the voice of the Padres for a little bit, and before that, he was a minor league guy.
I have a sympathy for him. I really do. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm always bagging on him, but like when I was new in media, there are a lot of people that wanted to mold me into the image that they wanted me to be in. And you had to make decisions sometimes of, would I take the lesser job? Or would I run the risk that this one ends and I got to go find another one to be able to still be me? Or do I want the money and the higher level thing? It's a very, very difficult thing to do. He is on one of very few Major League Baseball teams. Like this,
right.
These jobs don't open up that often, right?
This is a job of a lifetime for this guy.
And so,
but I don't know that he was prepared for it.
I don't think so either. But the thing is like you don't walk away from that job. You don't.
No.
And when and when they come and they tell you, look, you've never done this before, and nobody else is probably ever going to be looking at you right now, and the only way that you're ever going to continue to do this and be a Major League Baseball guy is if you play ball with everything that we ask you to do. So here's the propaganda sheet. Get out there and say these things and take the hits. Sometimes you take the hits, man. So the checks keep coming. And so you still have a chance at a longer term career. That's why I feel a little sympathy for him, because I think most people put in his situation would have a hard time doing anything other than what he's doing right now. There are things called portable CPAP machines.
Portable?
Yeah. Huh. I mean, I always thought they were all portable. My dad carries his all around. I remember when we went on a trip like 20 years ago and he had a CPAP machine, and he was lugging around he had its own suitcase, basically. That's how big the thing is. Now they have very compact ones, and Hyatt Home Medical Equipment wants to help you out with them. For superior portability, integrated humidification, advanced auto set technology, whisper quiet operations. So you're in the hotel and the room is not rattling and disturbing everybody else that's in the room for you. Smart connectivity. It actually pairs up with an app so that you can track what's going on as you're sleeping. These devices are available at Hyatt Home Medical Equipment, and they work with your insurance. They have 0% financing. I want you to go to hhme.com and check out what Hyatt has for you. Switch to a new age of life with Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. Let's talk about these races that are going on in Major League Baseball.
Because they're intense.
They are intense.
This is a good way to end a baseball season. If as a White Sox fan, we don't really have much to watch for other than, toasting the 100th loss again.
I guess so.
But I guess
we don't even get to watch John Schriffen firing watch. Doesn't even happen this year. But
no, we don't get to.
Kind of disappointed by it.
We don't get the long goodbye. But what we do get, if you look around, is there is some absolutely exciting baseball right here in the Central. it starts with, the Guardians, when we were talking about the White Sox not losing 100 games, we thought maybe they could take 1 or 2 out of 3 from the Guardians, and they got swept, and it was like, what is that? But now I look at what the Guardians have done since then. It's like, they are making a very 2005-esque charge towards maybe knocking the Tigers out of the division and maybe even out of the playoffs.
The White Sox had an influence on this race. They played really well against the Tigers, and then they got swept by the Guardians. The Guardians have won 9 out of their last 10, and the Tigers have lost 9 out of their last 10, and they're on a 6-game losing streak right now, and they're only holding on to the Central by a game as we sit here and talk. And here's the crazy reality if you're a Detroit Tigers fan. You've been leading all year in that division. You've been getting
by a mile.
You've been making your postseason plans. You're only a game above the Guardians, but you're also a game above a Guardians Astros tie for the last wild card spot. Which means over the last 6 games, if you don't get it together, you could miss the postseason entirely. Because the Guardians could pass you and you could fall down there with the Astros. You're only a game away from being tied with the Astros for the last wild card spot. And you could very easily slip out of the postseason. I mean, if you're a Detroit Tigers fan, you're not sleeping. You're so angry. You want AJ Hinch fired. Like you're furious. A Detroit Tigers podcast right now is just 30 minutes of screaming into the microphone. That's all it is. It's bad right now for them.
The Detroit version of Chris Lanuti has a vein popping on his forehead and will not be able to talk for 3 days after posting his show.
That guy's having a rough time. Probably already had a heart attack.
Really?
Yeah,
really.
He's having a rough time. Like that's insane.
Yeah, there's a Detroit version of me that didn't recover. Yeah. There's basically what's going on.
He died. The insane thing is, first of all, you get and this gets set up by the Mariners just taking care of business against the Astros head to head. And getting a 3-game lead, which is not insurmountable, but that's got to feel insurmountable for the Astros. And the Astros are sitting there tied with the Guardians for that last spot. The Red Sox are only a game up, same record as the Tigers. Don't think they're in there automatically. Between the Tigers, the Red Sox, the Guardians, and the Astros, one of them is missing the postseason. And that's insane to say that out loud. Especially if you're a Red Sox fan or a Tigers fan, because you didn't even think this was possible. You're like, we're going to the postseason. And in Boston and Detroit, there's panic right now as the last couple series occur in Major League Baseball. Like if you watch your White Sox. Oh, well, Houston too. Yeah, you're right. Because Houston was up at the top. And then the Mariners smacked them and said, no, we're taking this division. And good for them. Because, I hate the Astros. I hate the Astros. Okay. Right. They cheated. Yeah. They cheated to win a World Series. They cheated. They flat out cheated to win a World Series. I hate their whole organization. Every time they lose, I take joy in it. I really do. And the thing is, I actually thought they were a nice little cute organization. We played them in 2005. I felt bad sweeping them. But I hate them. On my list of Major League Baseball teams I hate, the Astros are definitely in the top 3, if not my most hated. Like
it'll be a while.
I would just love to see them miss the postseason. I would.
It'll be a while. It'll be. I mean, Altuve retiring will help, but it'll be a while before the Astros get back in my good graces. I agree with you.
And here's the funny thing: like I don't like the teams in my division. Like I don't like Tigers fans, and I don't like Guardians fans, and I really don't like Royals fans. I think they're just obnoxious. That's a fan base that just sit around and you try to talk baseball with them. They don't even know who's on the team. Half of them. They're just the worst. They're the worst fan. Go to Kansas City. Go into a bar that pretends it's a sports bar and try to have a conversation about baseball with Royals fans. You're going to walk out with your head hurting. Like I'm not a fan of the teams in my division, but I'd like to see my division get 2 representatives in because then I'm just not in the most garbage division of Major League Baseball. Like there's a little bit of me that doesn't want to be in the most garbage division of Major League Baseball.
Well, and the West has a chance to only have 1. And frankly, the East having 3 just sort of pisses me off too.
Yeah, what would you rather see happen? Would you rather see the Red Sox fall apart, which could happen? The Red Sox could fall apart as eeasily as the Tigers.
They're only 4-6 in their last 10.
Right. So the Red Sox could fall apart and you could lose one of those East Coast teams, which is just going to create so many problems for all these East Coast networks that cover sports. Like, it's just going to bother them so much, but I would
because they don't want the Blue Jays. They don't want the Blue Jays winning that division, but it's already done. Yeah. Right? Toronto, as far as they're concerned, Toronto's the Midwest. Toronto is St. Louis, just really far north.
It's North Midwest. That's
right. That's all it is.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, it's going to be a crazy finish. And just as a fan, I mean, maybe you see it differently, but I kind of want to see the Tigers and the Guardians stay in there, even though you kind of chuckle a little bit if the Tigers blew it here. But like, I'd like to see the two Central Division teams make it, and I'd be perfectly happy with the Red Sox or the Astros being the team that misses this. I have a bigger hatred for their fan bases and that East Coast bias and the Astros being cheaters. Like those are the two teams I'd rather see fall out. As much as I dislike the rivals that we have in the division, I would like to see my division represented in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. If for one thing, I have some familiarity with the Tigers and the Guardians because I've watched more of their games and I've admittedly watched other teams because they play the White Sox more often. The other thing is that if you're in this division and the division is always just sort of lousy and there for the taking, that's what lets the White Sox organization off the hook. Because if they don't have anyone to chase, then there's absolutely, and they continue to phone it in off season after off season, then it really should start to get them in trouble with Major League Baseball. It should start to get them in trouble with the Players Union. Because they can't sit there and say, well, the division is anybody's for the taking if the Tigers have gone to the playoffs in back-to-back years, if the Guardians are consistently making playoff hunts, and runs.
And with this wild card, you have a puncher's chance of getting in the postseason.
Right,
so
exactly.
Not competing. I'm telling you, they don't go out and do something to put together a competitive team in 2026. You're right. There should be outrage from the Players Union. This we're going to sit around and rebuild for years thing, first of all, doesn't necessarily work. We've gone over that on this show before. How it doesn't
many a time.
It doesn't really work. It fails more than it actually succeeds because it's always some cheap owner that's just using it to cut down on cost and claiming that we're going to build, but we're really not going to build. And again, this goes back to something I've said all year long. Thank God Chris Getz knows who his owner is. Like, he gets it. He really does. He seems to really understand it. That's why you got Brian Bannister developing pitching. We talked about that with James Fox on the last episode. The idea that they've got four guys who are earmarked to be the number one or number two guy in your rotation. They're hoping one of those four guys or two of those four guys work out because they can make a 3, a 4, and a 5 starter easily, and they can go out and get those middle of the road, cheap veteran pitchers, and they can do things with them. And that's what they're going to have to do because their owner doesn't spend money, especially on pitching. He's not going to get in and chase these premier pitchers, so you have to develop them. But at least the White Sox are understanding of that now. At least the front office that knows who the owner is. And so now the real question becomes, can Chris Getz convince his owner, I need a little bit more payroll and I need to add a couple of bats and I need to tweak this here and there because I think you could get into this thing. I mean, these races would be, the National League I think would be over, right? If it was the old system, the National League's over. Instead, you got the Reds, the Mets, and the Diamondbacks in a death struggle for the last spot in the wild card. But the National League would be pretty much over. The Padres would be kind of chasing the Dodgers, but they'd be getting in the wild card. So it wouldn't be as intense. So these additional wildcard teams really create the possibility of your team making it to the postseason if it was 20 games under 500 the year before. And you have a huge amount of payroll flexibility and the ability, and you've got guys that are up and coming and growing with your team. I'm not saying that they're a playoff contender next year, but you know what? They shouldn't be a team that we're sitting around saying, well, we're just developing players and we're just hoping not to lose 100. That would be so disappointing as a fan. So disappointing. John Schriffen would tell you, well, the real fans don't care, but I think the real fans do care. That's the difference. Brooks Boyer can sit there and tell me that I think he's doing better with the fans. I have to ask the question, which fans? Because if he's doing really well with the fans that go to the ballpark every day, well, that's because they don't have to listen to him. The people sitting at home watching on TV, I don't know if he's connecting with them, right?
There's your problem.
He does really well with the guys. He does really well with the guys that are at the ballpark every day. Like those fans, the guys and gals that are at the ballpark every day, they love him. They don't have to listen to him, so they love him. those at home, I don't know if you got the same connection. I'm just not sure about that.
No, it's like saying Gene Honda is great with your TV audience.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
Socks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on socksinthebasement.com.